She's mouthing the line that we hear that there's this line of separation between church and state. The church shouldn't interfere with temporal politics, with worldly affairs. Okay? From a Catholic point of view, the separation of church and state is a heresy. As Catholics, we can't believe in the separation of church and state. Jesus founded the church to be a light to all the nations. And all the nations, the leaders of nations, are supposed to look to the church for guidance, not for everyday political matters, but in moral areas, yes. Okay? Like areas of abortion, contraception, stem cell research. The church has the truth. So to say that the church has to keep it within their church walls is, from a Catholic standpoint, heresy. And here's the liberal blogosphere reacted with sarcasm, anger to his statements, which were published in Legatus magazine. Legatus is an organization founded by the founder of Domino's Pizza. Anyone know who he is? The founder of Domino's. He founded a Catholic university, Ave Maria, in Florida. And anyway, here's a quote, another quote. The Catholic Archbishop of St. Paul, Minneapolis, believes that Satan invented birth control, condemns gay marriage, wrote Salon's Kate McDonough. Hail Satan, I guess. So she thinks this is a good thing. Okay, let's hail Satan, because if the Archbishop says Satan invented these things, well, we'll praise Satan. Well, David Badash of the gay website, the New Civil Rights Movement, that's what they're calling the gay rights movement, okay, claimed that because Minnesotans voted just a few months later to allow homosexuals to marry, just as God intended, he said, Badash asserted the money the Archbishop spent fighting marriage redefinition was wasted. See, Archbishop Nienstedt spent a lot of money because they had a vote up in Minnesota. Minnesotans voted to allow what they call marriage between two people of the same sex. And then criticizing his remarks as ugly and anti-gay attack, Badash added, if the 30 Catholic archbishops in the United States were ranked by degree of anti-gay activism and homophobia, John Nienstedt would certainly be near the top. He lamented the Archbishop apparently was unrepentant for his activism during the Minnesota gay marriage vote. See, that's another name that they label you if you speak out against their agenda. They call you homophobic, okay? Which I freely admit I am. I fear the gay agenda. It's very powerful, very well organized, and they've influenced the thinking of many people. For example, in Minnesota, where they voted to allow so-called marriage between people of the same sex, okay? Which, according to God's law, is not possible. Okay? According to nature. Okay? We're going to continue on marriage today, and just to review once again, Mitch, what are the three goods of marriage?
Fidelity.
And
promises.
Fidelity is one.
The promises.
Well, the promises that you're making during the marriage ceremony, that encompasses the three goods of marriage. One is fidelity. I promise to be true to you, faithful and true. It's exclusive. What is the other one?
Permanency.
Permanency and
procreation. Children.
Procreation and education and children. Okay. Those are the goods. Those are the goods of marriage. Okay? And in regard to the procreation and education of children, we were discussing that issue in particular, there is an inseparable link, okay? An inseparable, this is the teaching of the church, inseparable link, okay, that cannot be broken, okay, between the unitive or love aspect of marriage, aspect of the marital act, okay? Thomas? And the procreative life-giving aspect, okay? What does that mean? Well, you can't separate them, okay? Unitive love and procreative life. Okay? Contraception, okay? Contraception and sterilization, they separate the life-giving. Okay? They exclude intentionally. That's where the sin is. Okay? If someone's naturally infertile, you're not sinning. But exclude, okay, intentionally, okay, the life-giving aspect. Okay? Children, okay? And so you can't engage in the marital act and intentionally exclude its life-giving aspect. Remember, the Bible, going back to thousands and thousands of years before Christ, it was called onanism. Okay? God struck someone dead for doing this. This offends God because God may be bringing a new human life into existence. Okay? So you can't exclude the life-giving aspect, and in vitro fertilization, okay, in vitro, okay, that means test tube babies, okay, creating life in a test tube. Okay. You can't do this because in vitro excludes the unitive. Okay. This is, in vitro is life without love. Okay? Life without love. Okay? Life without love. You can't have life without, you can't be making life in the test tube. Okay? That's the unitive aspect, the love aspect. It has to be the result of the marital act. Okay? This is the teaching of the church. This is important to know because this is why both contraception, sterilization, and in vitro are wrong. Okay? One is because it excludes the life-giving, the other, it excludes the love-making portion of it. You can't exclude either one. They both go together. They are inseparable. Okay? By God's design. Okay? By God's design. You can't separate them. That's the teaching of the church. Okay? So, love and life go together. Okay? You cannot separate love and life. Okay? Love, life. In the marital act, by God's design. And now, another thing that you saw a vague reference to yesterday in Archbishop Neinstad's article, okay, was was quoting from Fulton Sheen, Archbishop Sheen. Archbishop Fulton Sheen is he was the first televangelist. Okay? He was on television in the 1950s, and everyone watched him throughout the whole country, Catholics and non-Catholics. Before that, he was on radio in the 1940s. Okay? And he was a prolific writer. His cause is being put forward for canonization. We hope he'll be a saint. They just had a miracle take place. Archbishop Sheen was born in central Illinois, within the Peoria Diocese. And Archbishop Sheen, his cause being put forward for canonization, the first step is you're declared a blessed, and you need a miracle. And there was a miracle that took place. There was a child who was in the birthing process, the umbilical cord wrapped around the child's throat. I'm not sure if it was a male or a female, and the child suffocated. The child was dead, no activity, brain activity, breathing, nothing, for over 1 hour. They brought the child to the hospital because it was actually a birth at home. It was with a midwife. That was the problem. The midwife didn't know what to do. So they brought the child to the hospital. 1 hour and some minutes after the child is dead, there's no brain activity, nothing for an hour. The mother and father, they heard about Archbishop Sheen and his cause for canonization. They had a relic of Sheen. I think, I'm not sure what type of a relic. It was a first-class relic, a bone or a piece of clothing. But they were praying to Fulton Sheen as well. And the child came back to life. And the team of doctors at, I think it was St. Francis Hospital, they said, we have no medical explanation for this. The child is normal, no medical problems. It was a verified miracle by a team of doctors, most of who worked in the Catholic.
Yes, so the kid's not like, I'm not trying to be mean, but he's not like mentally retarded?
No, that's another miracle. There's no harm done. The child's a normal child. Without any oxygen, it's medically speaking impossible. You can't be unconscious for an hour, not only unconscious, but no breathing, medically dead, okay? No heartbeat, no brain activity, nothing, and come back to life and have no harm. But this child's normal. So that's a miracle in favor of Archbishop Fulton Sheen, and he will be declared blessed soon. Okay? Well, Archbishop Sheen wrote my favorite book on marriage. And in the book, Archbishop Nonstad made reference to Fulton Sheen. Okay? Fulton Sheen said that all love is triune. Okay? All love is, the bottom line, triune. Okay? Meaning three. Okay? Because first of all, what love is triune? God's love. Okay? God the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Okay? That's triune, this love. Okay? The Father begets the Son, the Word. Their love is the Holy Spirit. Okay? So this love is triune. The love of God is triune, three. They're in a bond of love for eternity. Okay? Marital love is triune too. Okay? The man, the woman, and God. Okay? And Fulton Sheen wrote a book, my favorite marriage book, 3 to Get Married. He said it takes 3, okay? It takes 3 to get married. Because it takes 3 to love. The man, the woman, and God. All love is triune. Great insight. Beautiful. At wedding homilies, during masses, I say this all the time. It takes 3 to get married because it takes 3 to love, the man, the woman, and God. And the married couple has to keep God in their relationship, or else, if they don't, their human love will sputter out and die because God will not be there fueling it, and their love will disintegrate. Because God is the bond of their love. They have to keep their faith, practice their faith. Okay? It's so important. All love is triune. Because God is a trinity of persons in love. From all eternity, we're made in God's image and likeness. Marriage is, besides the goods of marriage, I had this in my notes, but I'm not sure if Mr. Pitpain covered it with you. Did Mr. Pitpain cover how marriage is a contract? He didn't? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, no,
Yeah.
okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, marriage, okay. Marriage, okay. I'll write it on the board in case he didn't, okay. Is different ways to view marriage, okay. Marriage is a contract, okay. What's a contract? Contract is entered into between two parties, okay. Okay. Two parties, okay. And it's their mutual consent, okay? The man and the woman. Their mutual consent. That's what the promises are. Okay? And it must be freely entered into. Okay? Freely entered into. You can't be forced to get married. Sometimes people get married because there's a pregnancy, and that may be a valid marriage, and they may be doing it freely, but sometimes they're not. And if they're not, and someone's really pressured to enter a marriage that they didn't want to enter into, so they just said the words of, yes, I'll promise to be true to you, but really didn't mean it, and that could be proved, that could be a reason for an annulment, because the marriage never really took place because this person was under pressure to marry, and they really didn't want to. It was against their will. Okay? In the old days, they used to call them shotgun weddings. Okay? You hold a shotgun to both parties. Okay, you're pregnant. You're the couple that conceived this child. You're going to get married. Putting pressure on people. Well, that's not a reason to marry. As priests, we tell people if someone gets pregnant, wait until after the child's born, especially if they're young and they hardly know each other, and then you get married later. My friend, a priest, just performed a marriage for his niece, and this was the case. Their child is 3 years old. Now, he just performed the wedding last Saturday because he said, wait, don't get married just because there's a child, because you may not be really right for each other. They hardly knew each other. And they got to know each other afterwards, and they decided, okay, we want to get married. Okay. Then it's more of a freely entered into decision. But marriage, from one standpoint, is a contract. Okay? And you have parties, and you know what expectations are when you enter into the marriage contract. Generally, right? We all grow up in families, most of us. We know what's expected. Husbands and wives, what we have to do, to fulfill our responsibilities as husbands and wives. Okay? And that's what you're agreeing to. Okay? In addition to saying the marriage vows, I'm going to be faithful and true to you, and this is until death, and we're open to children. Okay, so it's a contract from one perspective. Okay, it's also something more than just a contract. Contract is a cold, kind of a legalistic way of looking at marriage, but marriage is also a vocation. And vocation comes from a Latin word. Does anyone know what Latin word vocation comes from? Any Latinists here? Has anyone ever taken Latin? No? Okay. What is it?
Vocare.
Vocare, okay. Vocare, okay. Vocation comes from vocare, okay. Vocare is Latin. It means to call. Okay? To call. Most of you will be called to the vocation of marriage. That's just the way things are. God doesn't want most people called to the priesthood or religious life because He wants us to be fertile and multiply and fill the earth and subdue it, okay, as Genesis says. But God called some to the priesthood or religious life. But people have maybe a misunderstanding that marriage is a vocation. People are called to marriage. I tell people when I'm preparing them for marriage, out of all the people in the world, you have found each other. This is no accident. It's not happenstance. Okay? So God's called you to this vocation, this beautiful vocation of marriage. Okay? And people getting married, they believe that. This is the right person for me. Out of all the people in the world, I found you and you found me, and that's why we're getting married. Okay? Which is a beautiful thing. Some are called to a different vocation, a vocation to priesthood or religious life, okay? Like I was. I think I said I wanted to get married originally before I came to a knowledge that God was calling me to the vocation of the priesthood. I wanted to have a big family, a lot of kids, but God called me to forsake marriage for the sake of the kingdom. And did I ever tell you my call, how I came to know it? Okay. Would you like to hear? You would?
Yeah.
Okay. Sure. Yes. Well, I was halfway through law school, and I heard a homily at Mass. I was going to daily Mass every day. I lived a block away from the cathedral in Chicago. That's where Loyola Law School is. And I lived about a block from there. And I used to go to Mass every day, and I heard at Mass the gospel where Jesus is calling His apostles. Come follow me and leave everything. And it was the first time I really understood it as applying to me. And I thought, I think Jesus is talking to me. And so I went and talked to a priest. It's good to get some counsel on this. And the priest said, well, don't rush your decision. I was ready to quit law school halfway through and enter the seminary. He said, just take your time and pray about it. Keep going to Mass, keep praying. And he gave me some books to read by St. Teresa of Avila, Doctor of the Church, whose feast day we celebrated just a couple of days ago. Okay. And I read her works. I finished law school, and I went to work as an assistant state's attorney. I was a county prosecutor. And but during the time I was the county prosecutor, I kept going to Mass every day and praying, because I thought, well, I'll see what God wants me to do here. And after a few years of working as a prosecutor, I began to pray more and think, is God calling me to the priesthood? And I needed some signs, though, to tell me that God was really calling me. So I asked for concrete signs. And I adopted a practice of my mother. I think I have my Bible here. You can see. My mother, when she had questions about things, she would fleece the Bible. It's a practice. It's called fleecing the Bible, because the prophet Nathan, he put lamb's fleece out on the ground, and if God wanted him to go into battle, the ground would be wet, the fleece would be dry. That's a sign, okay? And that's where we get the term fleecing the Bible. My mother would just open up the Bible when she had a question, put her finger down, and get an answer to her questions. She would do this growing up. She told me, I would just pray, what do you want me to do, Lord? Open the Bible, put her finger down, and boom, she'd get an answer. So I thought, if my mother can do it, I can do it. So I started to fleece the Bible. And I would open to the New Testament, because the New Testament, is where Jesus, calls apostles and things. So I would open up, and I opened up over the period of about 20 of a period of about two years maybe, it happened maybe 20 times or more, I opened up to the Bible, to the Gospels, and I put my finger down, and guess what it was? It was Christ called his apostles. And I even went to different Gospels because I thought, well, I'm wearing this Gospel out. I'm opening up to the same page because I opened it there before, so I'm going to visibly look to another page, and then I opened it up and put my finger down. It was Christ called to his apostles. And this happened like 20 times over a couple of years. Almost every time. Not every time, but almost every time it happened like that. And I thought, well, this is more than mere circumstance, right? Okay. The odds are that you wouldn't do this. Okay. And the last time I did it, I was visiting my folks at their house. I'd been out with a couple of friends. I came home, got the family Bible out, and everyone was in bed. And I said, Lord, I'm going to ask you one more time. Give me a sign. Let me know if you want me to be a priest. And I opened up the Bible, and I didn't open up to the New Testament by mistake. I opened up to the Old Testament. And I thought, well, Lord, you're not going to give me a sign today, so maybe some other time. And then I shut the Bible, and I closed the Bible, but I kept my finger in it for some reason. And I thought, well, I'll just read and see what it says in the prophet Isaiah. So I opened up the Bible, put my finger down, and here's what I read. This is chapter 6. The Lord said, whom shall I send? And Isaiah said, here I am, send me. So I took that as a sign from God. Whom shall I send? The Lord asks. And Isaiah says, here I am, Lord, send me. That's where I put my finger down, right there. So I shut the Bible and I said, okay, Lord, no more tests, no more questions. I'll enter the seminary. So I did. So you can pray about a vocation. What does God want you to do? You still have time to decide, okay? Is God calling you to the priesthood, religious life? Is God calling you to marriage? Okay. Like Sister Dolores Hart, okay, who was engaged to get married and then broke it off and said, no, I'm going to become a nun. Because she was sure God was calling her to that vocation. Okay. Most of you will be called to the vocation of marriage, so you have to pray. That's how you know your vocation. You got to pray. What vocation is God calling you to? Pray every day. If you keep praying, God will let you know. He'll speak to your heart. So you'll have knowledge of this. Okay. So, the vocation, marriage is a vocation, a calling, okay? And God calls married people to be saints. Okay? Now, when Mr. Pitpain was here in my place, did he have you look up saints, married couples who were saints? Did he do that? No, okay. Well, there are a couple of married couples that are blessed right now. They're on their way to sainthood. One of them is the little flower's parents. St. Teresa of Lisieux. Her parents are, I think they're blessed right now. Okay. There are married couples that have been saints. They've lived very holy lives and they're models for sainthood. There's a universal call to holiness. We're all called to be saints. And married couples are called to help each other become saints. That's what married couples are supposed to do, help each other. To become more holy, to get to heaven. That's the goal. Okay? I just had a funeral this morning. I came right from the burial, right here. And a couple was married for, 60 some years. They're both in their 80s. And the husband and wife, they met dancing. They taught dance, both ballroom dancing and other forms of dancing, for 30 years after they retired. They were older. They danced up until they were in their mid-80s. They went on cruises and they danced. They taught people how to dance. Beautiful. So they lived out their vocation very beautifully, their vocation in marriage. And in fact, when I walk out of here, I'm going to the IA in order to join them at the funeral dinner. Anyone know what the IA is? Italian American Club, right? My parishioner owns it. So, now, what else besides a contract and a vocation is marriage? Marriage is something else. As far as Catholics, what do we consider marriage as Catholics? We say marriage is what? One of the 7 sacraments. Marriage is a sacrament, okay? It's a sacrament. What does that mean? What does it mean that marriage is a sacrament? Well, it means that, I think I said this before, Matthew 19, okay? Matthew chapter 19, let me see what verses it is, 1 to 9, okay? 1 to 9. Jesus talks about marriage, okay? Actually, we consider Jesus' presence at Cana as one of the evidences that he instituted marriage, okay? He was at the wedding at Cana. That's where he begins his first public miracle, okay? First miracle of Jesus, okay? So, Jesus blessed marriage, okay? He blesses marriage. But as far as its indissolubility and total fidelity, Matthew 19, 1 to 19. And Jesus was asked by the Pharisees and the scribes, okay, after saying that a man, if he divorces his wife and marries another, he commits adultery, they said, how can you say this? Moses allowed it. And what does Jesus say? It wasn't so in the beginning. In the beginning, God created them male and female. A man shall leave his father and mother, cleave to his wife, the two become one flesh. And what God has joined, no human authority may separate. He raises marriage up and makes it unbreakable. Okay? There's nothing anyone can do, even the spouses themselves, to break the marriage bond. Okay? Even if a spouse is unfaithful, it doesn't break the marriage bond. There's nothing we can do. No human power can separate what God has joined. Okay? But if the marriage was not lawful in the beginning, that's what an annulment is. Okay? So Jesus raised up marriage to be a sacrament. And as a sacrament, what do you get in a sacrament? What comes with a sacrament? There's something that comes with it. When we receive any sacrament, we get something in our souls. What do we get? It begins with a G. Yes. Take a guess. Grace. We get grace, okay? Special graces come, okay? Special graces, okay? They come with the sacrament, okay? The sacrament of marriage. Special graces to help the married couple, to help the couple, okay? Live out, okay? Their vows, okay? Their vows. They get special graces to help them. There's a reason why the marriage vow says for better or for worse, for richer or for poorer, in sickness and health, in good times and bad. Okay? Because it all isn't happiness and lovey-doveyness and everything. There are trials in marriages. We know this from growing up in families. Okay? If you came from a family where nobody ever argued, okay, no one ever had problems, tell me, because this is unique. Everyone has problems. Everyone encounters difficulties. With God's grace, special graces, any difficulty can be overcome. I've seen couples where one was unfaithful, and they've gotten back together and have a stronger marriage. So you get special graces with the sacrament to help you live out your marital vows. It's not easy to be patient and kind with people. Just think about this. You're being remotely prepared for marriage right here, if this is your vocation. Okay? When I recommend a reading for marriage, for the Mass, okay, I recommend St. Paul, 1 Corinthians, chapter 10, I think it is, or 11, let me see. I'm forgetting right now. Where St. Paul describes love. Okay? And St. Paul says, oh no, it's chapter 13. Okay? 1 Corinthians chapter 13. St. Paul says, he describes love, and this is not love of affection, okay? Love of a feeling of an emotion. Okay, that's one type of love. But what St. Paul is talking about here is agape. Have you heard of agape? What is agape? Because there's different types of loves, and we need a special love to live out the marriage vows, which St. Paul talks about in 1 Corinthians chapter 13. Okay, there's love of affection. Okay, love of affection. Okay. Feelings. Okay. This is good. It's beautiful. Okay. People have a deep affection for each other. That's what draws them together, okay? But this love of affection, okay, is not going to keep people together when things get bad. Because every marriage has tests of faithfulness and indissolubility, okay? Love of affection is what draws people together, but the love, Christian love, okay, it's called charity, okay, and in the Greek word, okay, is agape, A-G-A-P-E, okay, agape. This is the love that's the real foundation, is the foundation of marital love. Okay? And what is agape? It is sacrificial, self-giving love. Okay? Sacrificial, self-giving. Okay? You have to sacrifice. Give of yourself to the other person. It can't all be me, me, me. I'm only concerned about me. Did you ever wonder why the movie stars, they can't remain married, many of them? It's very difficult for them to remain married to one person. Because they don't know what this is. Because they're egoists, a lot of these people, and they just think about themselves. And it's all about me. And that's why it's so difficult for them to go out of themselves and be more concerned about the other person than me. That's what marriage requires. The sacrificial, self-giving love, which is going to be the bedrock and foundation of the marriage, because this love here, okay, love of affection, okay, I'm gonna go like this, okay, like this, okay. What do you think that means? Up and down, up and down, up and down. Undulating, okay? You may have, some high points, but then there are maybe some low points too. For people, they don't have an affection for each other anymore. Does that mean, oh, well, I don't love this person anymore, so I'll just, I'll go on and I'll find someone else? That's the mentality of many people today. Unfortunately, because they don't understand that it's this love that's really necessary. And this isn't easy. This is tough love. I mean, to be forgiving and sacrifice yourself for the other person, to do this day in and day out over the period of a lifetime. But God's grace is here. This is what God's grace is. This is God's grace working in agape love. Okay, it's tough. Yeah, someone did something to really hurt someone, but okay, God's grace is there to see us through, to persevere. Okay, until death. Okay. And this is really, really important what I'm about to say here, because a number of couples that I prepare for marriage, not a small minority, but I'd say a good number, okay, they don't follow what I'm about to say. Okay? Because God's grace in the sacrament of matrimony is going to be given to the couple. However, that grace doesn't operate in isolation from the other sacraments that you need. What other sacraments do we need to live out our married or our vocation, whatever it is? There are other sacraments that we must regularly take advantage of and receive. Okay? What are the two sacraments? There are two of them. Okay? Two sacraments that you need to live out your vocation. Okay? Two sacraments are needed in addition to marriage, the sacrament for matrimony. Okay? What are those two sacraments? What are the two sacraments that we have to take advantage of regularly in order to lead good Christian lives? One is, okay, reconciliation. We have to have confession of sins. Okay, confession. That's another name of the sacrament. Okay, confession of sins. Okay. It's also called penance. Okay, because we do penance for our sins. Okay, and it's also called reconciliation. Okay, reconciliation, because through confessing our sins, doing penance, we're reconciled to God. Okay, to God. And others, okay? Like spouses, okay? When you hurt each other, you gotta go to confession, okay? You say something mean, you do something bad, get to confession, go to confession. I tell married people, couples preparing for marriage all the time, go to confession regularly, once a month, okay? Once a month is the old standard, okay? Even to confess venial sins, go once a month. We get a special grace to help us to overcome our sinfulness, okay? Because we're all selfish. That's our fallen nature. We're selfish, we're self-centered. We have to live out agape love, which requires us to be other-centered, to care about more of the other person, and that's not an easy thing to do. Okay? And we failed at it. I'm convinced that if couples, and I tell this to couples preparing for marriage, I'm convinced that if they went to confession regularly, there would be no divorce. Because they'd be reconciled to each other if they're both going to confession. My parents used to take me to all the kids to confession once a month. It was Saturday, we load in the car, we went to confession. It was confession day, once a month. When I got to be your age, my parents didn't make me go.